Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about Visit to the Unknown from Tensei Shitara Slime Talk, and so without any ado let's begin. Visit to the Unknown, 19 Day of Regeneration Part 2. It would be a farewell once we returned to our own world anyway. And so there was no need to worry about being used over and over. Alright. Can I wake up the sleeping spirits and share the power? I don't mind, but that power. Oh, don't play dumb. Of course, I'm going to get it from you, Rimuru. Ah, I knew it. Of course. Well, fine. But only this once, okay? Okay. You can trust me on this. But, I don't trust you at all? I thought. But Ramirez seemed very enthusiastic. There was no need to dampen her spirit. Besides, she was right about one thing. Making the spirits active again would mean extending this planet's lifespan. In order to maintain an environment that was rich with nature, the role of spirits was very important. And so the two began to act. Let's begin then. Feldera shouted loudly as he returned to his original form. A great, black dragon. The aura he had been holding back was now unleashed, and immense energy now surrounded the planet. Impressive. Seeing it like this, he definitely exuded a sense of dignity. Unfortunately, Feldera's everyday attitude ruined it. Ha. I shall give you my blessing. Fertile paradox. Immense energy was unleashed into the atmosphere. It purified the toxins and caused a miracle. Barren wasteland. Contaminated dirt. As I watched, it all started to fill with greenery. The thick clouds that obstructed the sun began to be blown away by the storm. The dark clouds that appeared were full of water that fell as torrential rain. The rain changed and gained color. And when the rain stopped, the warm sunlight fell down on them. Feldera had revived the greenery, created water, and filled the land. Well. It really was incredible when you saw it with your own eyes. Now that I think about it, I had received a complaint from Ruminez after the Great War. The deserts had turned into jungles and the cities were swallowed up by the trees. She strongly reproached Feldera for being excessive. However, Feldera had run away. So I had to apologize profusely in his place. Now that I saw the scene in front of me, I could understand her complaint a little more. In conclusion, it was all Feldera's fault. I shouldn't have been blamed for it. I had to pay some ridiculous reparations too. Honestly, I was starting to get angry just thinking about it. It was all Feldera's fault. Recently, I had felt that Feldera was lacking in restraint, but I suppose he had really been doing his best. It could not be helped. It was a good thing to be reminded of what would happen when he did forget. The miracle did not end there. Now, it's my turn. Elemental, the world. Ramirez shouted triumphantly as she used her power. She stole more than a little of my nihility collapse energy and used it to transform into an adult. A beautiful, young woman, of course. The reality was that she was the same disappointing Ramirez who had the heart of a child. Ramirez sung. And her beautiful voice woke up the sleeping spirits. And then, the earth was blessed and regained the appearance of its golden age. Flowers bloomed on the ground. The air became thick and sweet. It became a paradise for the spirits that could not be seen with human eyes. This way, they wouldn't be forced to develop dangerous things. The gifts of nature would bring new life. It was quite impressive. Ramirez really was the queen of the spirits. Had she stayed like this all of the time, there would be no reason to despise her. It was too bad. I only lent her my power. I would take it back as soon as she was finished. Of course, she would definitely complain about it, but it was not good for her to have this power when she hadn't grown mentally. It was for her own good. And like that, the planet was reborn. They would be able to live without fighting each other for food and water. Now, it was unlikely that Feldera and Ramirez, who were preoccupied with their work, would need any protection, but I still left it to Beretta. And then I turned back to Michelle, who I had been neglecting. Michelle and the others had become speechless. Their eyes were glued to the scene before them. Ah, sorry to keep you waiting, I said. Michelle turned to me with a look of surprise. Yes. I understand. She was exasperated how ridiculous Feldera and the others were. I could see a giant building behind them that had smoke rising from one of the upper floors. Apparently, it was also Feldera's doing. Michelle looked like she had a lot she wanted to say. However, I was in no mood to hear it. I had sworn never again to make the same mistake that I did with Ruminez. Take your complaints to the man himself. And so I decided to tell them what I wanted to say, and that alone. I think this planet will be restored soon if you leave things to those two. I hope you can then forgive them for everything they did. After I said this, all of the people including Michelle began to shake their heads vertically at an incredible speed. This gesture seemed to have the same meaning here, so I guess they agreed. So there would be no problems left between our worlds. The only thing left was. Also, I have a suggestion if you don't mind. It seems like you want to execute this Fyodora guy. In that case, give him to me. I'll punish him for you. That punishment would be being put in Ramirez's research team. I could expect advancements in our technology, which was more than I could ask for. The airships in this world seemed like they could fly in space as well. The possibilities were endless. Perhaps this was counting my eggs before they hatched, but... PL, please wait. Would you please reconsider sentencing Lord Fyodora to divine punishment? A beautiful youth called Alvin said as he kneeled before me. Divine punishment? That was an exaggeration, I thought. But judging by their reactions, it seemed like the others feared me as well. This was probably because Fyodora had shown his abilities as a dragon. They clearly saw me as being in the same class. Oh, well. No. It's nothing like that. Lord Fyodora is. I tried to explain, but Alvin began his passionate speech. What it contained just confirmed what I had already guessed. Omsbine, the previous emperor, had been suffering from a fatal disease, and so Fyodora acted in his stead. Fyodora respected Omsbine and didn't want his reputation to be tarnished. And so he decided to take all of the blame. Well, it was a complicated problem. The world was dying. Should everyone die? Or should a small minority survive? When asked these questions, which answer was the right one? An administrator's job was to protect their people. It was said that if you abandoned the citizens you were supposed to keep safe, then problems would arise for your government. It would become a source of trouble in the future. An unbridgeable gap would exist between ruler and citizens. As men of science, Omsbine and Fyodora did not hesitate to choose the path of a small number of survivors. It was the logical way to think, once you took emotion out of it. However, it was a decision too heavy for a person to bear. However, they needed a sacrificial lamb. That's why Fyodora was going to settle everything and entrust Michelle with his hopes for the future. Is that true, brother? It is true, Michelle. Alvin nodded to her as he finished his defense of Fyodora. Fyodora was sagging as if drained of all of his strength. And so I patted him on the shoulder and nodded to him reassuringly. Then I turned to Michelle and the others and said plainly. Please don't worry. There won't be anything so extravagant as divine punishment. But I am taking this man with me so you can ascend to the seat of emperor and unite the world. If that's what I have to say to get a new researcher. That was my true feelings on the matter. However, their reaction was different from what I was expecting. Oh. He will entrust the sovereign right to General Michel. Am I really worthy? Huh? I think so. Weren't things going in that direction? Michelle was the daughter of Omsbine, the previous emperor. So she should be the next emperor. That was supposed to be the right answer. I had only said it because of those reasons. Their reaction was so overdone. It made me frantic. Maybe I had been wrong. Or perhaps they wanted Michelle's older brother, Alvin, to become the new emperor? If that was the case, then it was really up to them to talk about it and work it out. In the first place, giving my opinion on the matter would be interfering with their government. They were saying something about me entrusting the sovereign right, but I didn't have the authority to do such a thing. Very well, then. I swear to protect and guide this world you have beautifully restored with all of my body and soul. Michelle said as she kneeled. It really was so overblown. Besides, it was Fyodora who did the restoring. And Ramirez gave it the power to maintain its state. Well, I did lend her the power. But it was those two that had put it into action. I was pretty sure that Fyodora and Ramirez would hate me for stealing the credit. Good luck. Right, so you don't mind if I take this guy with me. In any case, I had succeeded in leaving things pretty vague. On top of that, I had acquired some valuable personnel. And while there seemed to be more than a few misconceptions, I was alright with it. All's well that ends well. As it was too much trouble, I decided that there was no need to clear up any misunderstandings. After that, we were guided into the city, where we talked about the finer points. I even promised to make schools once things had settled down and send students to help train them. Michelle agreed with this idea wholeheartedly and gave her consent. As they wanted a way to contact us, I gave them a communication crystal. Now it would be possible to contact each other if something happened. Once the schools were finished and they were ready to receive us, they would send word. And just like that, my first negotiation with another world came to a peaceful conclusion. As an aside, Omsbine was still alive. After returning to Tempest, Fyodora took out the brain that had been frozen, and said he wanted to research a treatment method. In order to save Omsbine, who was afflicted by a fatal disease, Fyodora had gone to the extent of saving him in a state of suspended animation. My restorative medicine healed him completely. We'll just say that Master Seal was also really good in regards to medicine as well. Normally, she wouldn't have helped them, but if it gave her an opportunity to learn more about the Mobius system, that was a different story. She didn't exactly say it in so many words, but it was pretty obvious that that was what she was thinking. It would be better if I didn't interfere with this matter. Feldora was very satisfied after being able to run wild. Ramaris was the same. On top of that, we had a brilliant new assistant. Beretta seemed to have suffered much as well, but he had acquired a new power that more than made up for it. Besides, the Mobius system would be installed in him once it was complete. In the end, the visit to the other world was a fond memory for all three of them. As for me, I was able to get some operating data from the different gate. And with a friend from a new civilization, the possibilities seemed to have increased. If you looked at the results alone, it was a great success. However, you could never be too careful. And so this definitely did not mean that Feldora and the others were now allowed to do as they pleased, troubling others and being troubled by them. Like that, our lives continued. A day that future generations would call the Day of Regeneration. Zaza saw it. That overwhelming presence. A being that was like a god from legend and myth. The dragon. Really, could he really have been the storm dragon? His body shook with shock, fear, and wonder. The dragon only needed to roar once, and the thick clouds were blown away and the sunlight rained down on them. The dragon only flapped its wings, and a tornado erupted and called forth thunder clouds. The embodiment of the supernatural. A being worthy of that moniker. Zaza was filled with joy as he looked up at the blue sky. Great dragon. I was so insolent. Zaza remembered his attitude up until now as he muttered the words in shame. And then. Kaa ha ha ha. You're as stiff as ever. The voice of Feldora, that carefree man that he couldn't bring yourself to hate, now echoed in Zaza's ears. I see. Yes. It's not like me. Until the very end, you are always ahead of me. Damn it. Zaza muttered happily. Zaza could see the children running towards him. Carmen was there, on the other side. And there was Sharma, Rindo, and the other resistance members as well. On such a beautiful new days as this, it would be an act against God to continue fighting. That is what Zaza thought. And so it was on this day, that the Empire and the Resistance made an eternal peace treaty. It was a historic moment, but it was easily overshadowed amidst the miracle that was the rebirth of the planet. Michelle had no words as her eyes were glued to the person. The jiggly, mysterious life form had turned into the embodiment of beauty. And then, the great words were formed. The world was saved, and as the person who was left to unite it, Michelle made a promise. I will lead humanity so that it never pollutes this world again. Translations by Asian Hobbyist website. And this duty would be passed on to future generations of emperors. And eventually. The legend states. The embodiment of beauty took the dragon and maiden with him and ascended. The empire boasted prosperity after that, as if to prove the validity of the divine right of the emperor. And so future emperors declared that they had been chosen by God to lead the world. However, if God were to determine that the emperor's actions were not justified, the prosperity of this world would once again vanish, as if it were nothing but a dream. Such words were inscribed. And so the imperial family respected God and dedicated their bodies and souls in order to fulfill their role, which was the governing of the world. This sovereignty given by God after the day of regeneration, it became an unending tradition, and was the duty of the imperial family. And that was how the legend was born. Of course, none of that had anything to do with Rimuru anymore. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more content.